Coming to you from the M&M Exterior Studio in Nooksville, Virginia, this is Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle, the introvert's extrovert. She talks to people so you don't have to. For now.
All right, welcome to episode 3 of Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle. I'm here with Kate from Flourish with Kate. And she has a funky little ad agency, and she's a media expert, ad expert, life expert. I love her, and I love chatting with her, and I'm so honored that she's here today. So thank you for coming, Kate.
Thank you for having me. I am honored to be here, and I love our chats too. I look forward to them. If I remember correctly, you are probably one of the first 3 people I told outside of my family that I was going to go ahead and launch my own business.
Yes, and I was so excited.
I was too. You made me feel like I was ready to roll.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, we've had some good chats that should have been maybe an hour and lasted 3 hours or
easily.
Something. So
that happens.
Thank you. And just like you sharing with me, I shared this whole podcast idea with you. And you've been helping me for sure flesh it out. So thank you.
I was so excited when you mentioned some of the people that we know in common and the Be the Change Foundation. And
sure.
I was so gung-ho about you doing it. And I'm glad that it took you down this path because you literally looked at me and said, I don't really know what I'm doing there, but I'll meet some neat people. I'll have some good conversations and I'll have a good time. Yeah. And the next time I saw you, you were like, I have this idea.
Oh.
I'm going for it. And I thought, that's a great idea. You should go for that.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's neat how that all kind of interlaced.
It is. Everything's kind of, packed together, or like one thing on top of another. So, well, why don't you introduce yourself? I just kind of gave a real casual bio of you.
That was a great introduction and accurate, I guess. My name is Kate Sprague Bjorklund. I've been married for about a year, or a little over a year, actually. I do have a funky little ad agency called Flourish with Kate, and I decided to go out on my own because for a long time I had been a captive salesperson for publishers or various companies for their financial instruments, things like that. And what I kept hearing over and over again from business owners is that no one was there to represent them. Mm-hmm. They were afraid to go to bona fide credentialed ad agencies because they thought that they would be big and I guess
scary. Maybe
Mad Men-ish.
Yeah.
But I had some relationships and they were quick to trust that I would transition into this new role that I was creating for myself. And there were a lot of people that were behind me. So It was a natural next step for me. I wasn't happy being a captive salesperson. And I wasn't happy with the way I saw certain businesses being treated.
Yeah.
Advertising's expensive, but there are things that businesses can be doing to build a budget by building their business without the spend.
Yeah.
Per
and
se.
That's kind of when our, we connected through business life, but when we talked, what I appreciated is that, and I'm like a verbal processor, let me throw all these thoughts at you. And I felt like you were good at kind of taking all of my thoughts, whether it was for my business life, whether it was for these creative ideas, but kind of making sense out of it. And so whether that turned into legit advertising dollars being spent or was just, hey, here's the next step to take on your journey, you're very good at helping kind of work through that. So
thank you.
I think your talents are being used.
Thank you. I enjoy it. Sometimes I can contribute a lot, and sometimes it's just more a matter of hand-holding and saying, you've got this. One of the craziest things that happened to me recently was from a husband and wife who have an invention.
Ooh.
And it is a cool invention. But he walked up to me after a presentation and said, I don't have a pretty thing to put on Instagram. I don't have a pretty food dish or a food truck or a logo or these wonderful, cute things that I see on that Instagram aesthetic. Does that mean I can't have my own social media? And I said, do you want your own social media? And he said, well, yes, I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you do? Well, he starts telling me about this really cool invention. And I said, you're like a rock star. Not only did you invent something, but you figured out how to monetize it and share it with other people. Like that's about as cool as it gets.
Dream. Everyone wants to invent something.
And he goes, yeah, but it's not pretty. You can't take pictures. And I said, then go silly. Go have fun with this thing.
Yeah.
Like it is kind of a super brainy thing that he has. And I told him, totally pocket protector out. Take the invention to various businesses that you check on.
Oh yeah.
And where's the guy now? Where's my invention today?
Yeah.
And have fun with it. And he looked so happy.
Yeah.
And it, he should be happy. It's a cool thing that he did, and he's helping other businesses with his invention.
But it's funny how something that's simple to you, like boom, there's this idea, but to him is life changing. Like I think that's what's valuable in friendships and relationships is that once again, it goes back to the whole sharing your thoughts and struggles and things like that, because it's like to someone, boom, you just think of it and it's done, so.
Yeah, I have to get a little bit better at holding
back. I know,
back.
you do need to hold back. From a business sense, yeah, you definitely
But
need to watch that,
really, and that goes back to the name Flourish,
Yeah.
I really enjoy seeing people take off.
Yep.
It's affirming. And it's really exciting to see them down the road when they're doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for me to hold it back and try to monetize everything.
Yeah.
But I've also learned that when I'm able to give and just let it go into the universe, that something presents itself, another opportunity comes in that is like, here, take my money. Like, there's not going to be a negotiation. I want you to take my money.
I think it's the abundance mentality versus the scarcity mentality. And when you have the closed fist and you worry about every little thing and every little.
And I did, for such a long time, that it was hard to let that go. But as soon as I did, I started to meet more people that were really in my corner, more than I even knew.
Yeah.
And they want good things to happen, not just for my family, but for me personally, for me professionally. And, in the end, I've come to the belief that not everything is meant to be monetized.
Yeah.
Sometimes you really just have to share because people will share back when they have the opportunity. And the opportunity of providing someone with a good reference or letting people know, wow, she really helped me grow my business exponentially. Just by believing in them sometimes it's enough for us to move forward.
I love what you said about the believing in you, because one of my happy little memories of your and I's like beginning of our friendship. I remember, so we first sat down. So I had done my 5-minute spiel at one of our networking meetings together. And I had basically told my life story and how I got to this point in 5 minutes. I think I probably went to like 8 minutes or something. But, it was talked about my journey of, college and then going up to New Jersey, sleeping on my friend's couch and living in my friend's, her bedroom when she moved off to New York. And, to me, it was like this, I don't know, it's just my story. It's not that big of a deal. It wasn't anything impressive. Like, hello, I just slept on a couch. And so I remember we were talking, and that's about the time that you were starting with the business idea. And you said, I was listening to your story and, I was so inspired. And I remember looking at you like you were crazy. Like, what? Like, because I slept on a couch. Okay. But it was one of those reminders that like, oh my gosh, your story. And this is what Dawn and I talk about, changing your story. And so something that to me was so, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like pathetic, like, oh, I just, everyone else is after college, like move into, getting these jobs with apartments in Arlington and everything. And then I was like sleeping on a couch. Like to me, it felt not great, but you helped me see that, like, no, that's good. And, that was inspiring to you for what you needed to hear or whatever. And so it was like, oh, it gave me that little feeling of like, oh, well, thank you,
Isn't it funny how we really don't value our personal experiences until someone else sees them?
Yes.
It happens all the time.
Yep.
And, it's hard to stop thinking that way. It's hard to start. I don't think that I really started to embrace my personal experiences until I had my daughters, because, you know, nothing will make you braver faster in a doctor's office getting a shot than when your toddler is looking at you.
Oh, yeah.
You will not cry. You will not flinch. You will get through it.
Yep.
So there were a lot of things that I knew that I had to change about my behavior. I didn't want my daughters to spend a great deal of time not appreciating who they were. I just remember being in school thinking, well, I'm not as pretty as this girl. I'm not as fast a runner. I didn't get the presidential award in fifth grade in PE. And I despised myself for not being more capable or more athletic or whatever it was. So I stopped saying those things out loud.
Yes.
When I realized that my kids were hearing it.
Exactly. And you don't want to pass that on to them.
You don't. And then you don't want to do that when you're out in the business world either. You want to help people believe in what they're doing. I mean, you want to be genuine about it, of course. But there are so many people that are just sort of bumping along. And then when you get down to it, they're not happy. They're not in a career that they really love. That they're not passionate about it. What would you really be doing? Well, honestly, I would be in a garden. That's what I would really be doing.
Yeah.
But I have been doing marketing for forever. And I love when the light bulbs go off in people's heads about that feels natural to me. I could do that.
Yeah. I like what you said that with, you know, because not everyone's afforded the opportunity or whatever because of life, you know, it's like you don't necessarily always get to work in your passion, but finding something you're passionate about. So for you, gardening, like, I want to talk more about that too, because Kate gave an amazing talk yesterday, and how it's one of those things that when you hear someone talk about, I think you are passionate about marketing because of what you just said. You're passionate about them having that moment. So you found the passion within the business. And when you talk about gardening, I remember we talked before doing the podcast about talking about gardening, and Kate saw my front yard and the weeds and whatnot. And I'm just not really there yet. But listening to yesterday, and I know I'm not the only one that felt this way, you inspired others to either want to garden or to find something that makes us feel as passionate about something as you did. So thank you for sharing that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that happened.
Yes. Well, that's why that's kind of what the podcast, like, if people just talk about what they're passionate about, you, even if it's not your thing, you get something from hearing someone walk through. I mean, I feel like the buzzword is like live out their truth, you know, like, but you know, do something that
talk
they
your
enjoy.
talk, walk
Yes,
your walk.
Exactly. So can you share more about how I think you're about like just kind of gardening in your life and what it means to you?
Well, I got started because I was looking for something that would be a creative outlet and stimulate my own mind. I was a stay-at-home mom. I was very alone. I had a toddler who was very brainy, and I had a 6-month-old who was very lumpy and
Squishy, sitting there smiling.
I wanted to find something that we could engage, but that wasn't over their heads, that wasn't crazy, busy, difficult. And I was really bumbling along. I had no idea what I was doing.
And there wasn't Pinterest when...
If there was, we were on dial-up.
Oh, gosh, yeah. It wasn't happening.
So I was inspired by a memory that I had as a 6 or 7-year-old at the Smithsonian looking at the cutouts by Matisse. And I thought, wow, how cool that I remember being overwhelmed by the sheer size of it. And
what made you think of that, by the way? I thought about that yesterday because I loved that you thought of that memory and then used it.
I really was just trying to figure out what on earth would have kept my attention when I was a small child.
Okay.
And I knew that I couldn't go back as far as 2.5 years old.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could. But I just started to think about things that were standout moments. Certainly grandparents and little vignettes that I could capture in my mind's eye. But that particular moment of feeling small really stood out as something that I could recreate for my girls.
Yeah.
But in a happy, joyful way, not in a way to intimidate but to inspire wonder. That's really what I was looking for, was a way to spark wonder and wonderment. And rather than feeling small and overwhelmed, I wanted them to feel amazed.
Yeah.
So my only criteria at that point was just to find things that bloomed at 24 to 36 inches that would be over their faces or in their faces.
Wow.
And that is really what got me started. And then I just sort of got addicted to what I was feeling out there. I went through a 2-week period where I lost 2 family members and found out that a third was slowly dying. I was studying for my insurance licensing at the time. I had just started a new job and it was pouring down rain and I was out in the garden doing something because it's all that I knew. It was the right place for me to be. And that would kind of become a theme throughout that year that when I was stuck in my stuff, I would go dig dirt. I would go plant something. I would go figure something out. So not to belabor that, I realized that I got something out of it that kept me going. And there was a time later that year where it got very, very depressing for me, very dark for me. And I knew that for the girls' sake, I had to be present. And so I sort of vested my passion, even in the dark days of winter, in you've just got to wait for the springtime. You've just got to get back out there.
You said that yesterday. And I wrote down to have faith in the dark, because that's something because if I think everyone can relate to being at a dark place in their life, and kind of like the poop pants story. If it hasn't happened yet, it's when, like, we're all going to have those days. Not to make light of it by any means, but, kind of, it's,
You're right.
But that's honestly because, not to switch gears too much, but when I went through my headache kind of stuff a couple years ago, I was in a dark, dark place, anxiety like I'd never had before. And, I always felt like I was an empathetic person. Like I could kind of relate, like, oh, I want to hear what you're going through, but I couldn't truly relate till I went through it. And I think before that, I kind of thought, oh, I don't struggle with that. I don't have that issue. And it's like, oh,
we don't struggle until it's a struggle.
Exactly. And these are just human emotions, and all it is how we're handling them. And so when life gets you where you're at a point where it's too much. And so I just loved that, having faith in the dark, because it's almost like you're going to get there. So you have to know ahead of time, like, when this hits, wait for the spring. I've got to just...
It did change my outlook from that point on. It was, I don't get terribly depressed. Some people say, oh, the days are getting shorter. It's so depressing. And I think, it's just another growing cycle.
Yeah. It's just seasonal, like riding the waves of life. Yep. It's just...
this bush is going to die back and this one is going to completely disappear from sight and I'm going to forget where I planted what and it'll be a nice surprise in the end,
when it comes up.
And that I think that's the other part of it. We don't surprise ourselves. And this is one of those things that I do that just like in the spring, I have to look at stuff and go, who put that there? I don't remember even buying that plant or planting that plant.
You said about the birds helping you.
Yeah.
or maybe screwing you up, either way. But,
I find myself very, very confused.
Yeah.
But then really funny, cool, thrilling stuff starts to happen. And I realized after a while that, if you've got goldfinches that are, like little buzzsaws on your coneflowers, they're probably not going to stay put. Those coneflowers are going to migrate to where the goldfinches find cover and safety in colder weather or a rainstorm or whatever. And so I would find my coneflowers around the corner and on the other side of the house and think, I'm sure I didn't do that.
Yeah.
And it actually took talking to my neighbor who sits on a bench in his yard and just sort of watches what's going on in my yard. And he said, I used to have all these goldfinches in my yard and now they're all over in yours. But I realized that's who was doing the gardening. That's who's been planting seeds around the corner. And that's actually my favorite stretch in the garden is where the lilies and the coneflowers are, because I had nothing to do with it. Like they just took over and said, this is what we're doing now.
But you started it, and I wrote down that others are on your team even when you don't know it.
Well, that's a great That's a cool way to look at that.
Because when you get something started and they're on your team, like they're supporting you, they
wanted to help.
Exactly. And
This
they grew your garden.
here.
Like they grew it. You had planted in the front and now it wraps around your
It
house.
does.
And then maybe, they planted those seeds and then you said, oh, I should plant more over there.
I should put a hydrangea over there and it won't bloom for 4 years, but that's okay. I'm going to be patient.
Patience, man, that's one thing. So yeah, I was like, you know what? We need to remember that others are always on our team.
So
I like that.
I wanted to revisit something we talked about when I arrived, which is your meadow garden.
Oh yeah.
And you
Well, wait, you called it a meadow garden.
Yeah.
I think I need to explain to readers what it really is though. It's an area of trees we planted that we just do not mow because it's tons of trees and they're like they would start out as little baby and they're still pretty young. And so it's just huge space of just whatever is growing. So I like meadow garden much better, but
I visited a place in England, the name of which escapes me, but it's a huge garden.
mm-hmm.
But they have these meadow gardens that, the only mowing is the pathway through them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I am so inspired by those,
Yeah.
This whole idea of I'm going to do nothing except create a path.
Mm-hmm.
I was so inspired by those. We tried to do it at my house and Ben just could not handle the overgrowth.
Yeah.
And to be fair, he's got his blacksmithing forge back there and he needed, he needs some things to be tidy.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, I have meadow garden envy right now.
So funny. Oh, I call it weeds. You call it meadow and garden. So I like that.
It feeds.
Change the perspective.
It feeds the species around here that need it.
Yeah.
Therefore, it is something that you are giving back.
Woohoo.
And it would be really, really easy to just go get wildflower seed or let me send over some mixtures that I have started to pull together and just start throwing them in there.
That is my level of gardening. So I could do that. Because I discovered that we did a huge garden a few years ago. And I mean huge because we were super motivated, fresh food, and my parents might do it. And we put it all in. And then time went by and it got so overrun. And it was like, yeah, you need to weed it. And I was like, oh gosh, no, I can't. That's too much.
That's not everybody's favorite thing. But I told you guys yesterday, when I'm struggling with a problem, I start pulling weeds and I name the problem every time I pull the weed. I
like that.
And that was the other part about the gardening that I thought was a revelation to me, is that I believe in spirituality. Mm-hmm. I think that the creator is an amazing entity, but I don't really enjoy the conversation or the dynamic that your relationship with the creator is different or better or not as good because you go to a church or a synagogue or a temple. So those things don't really resonate for me. But when I'm out gardening and doing my thing and thinking through things, sometimes I actually have to say, Kate, shut up. Like, shut your mind and just listen. Stop talking out loud and listen. Yeah. And it sounds creepy and weird, but I don't think that what I'm doing in the garden is so far different from others who might pray the rosary or the worry beads.
I was thinking the exact same thing, is that we spend so much time thinking and worrying, and, it's almost like whatever your faith is, it always comes down, I feel like, to praying, meditating, following your intuition, all those things. But the bottom line is, I feel like it's being quiet, shutting up,
I can't.
Exactly. I had to take a 6-week class to learn how to turn my brain off. And it was like mindfulness, and it was amazing, but I literally had to do that. But that's when you were talking about gardening and pulling the weeds. Like, I do feel like it's a time where you're focused on something and you just can't, I don't know. I feel like it allows you space to be quiet, and not everyone, like, so for me, and I don't know if it has to do with my headaches or what, but for me, it's like laying down, and I like listening to something that helps me kind of shut my brain off. But who knows, one day it could be gardening. But I think with your personality, that's for you, gardening. It kind of allows you to do something. And because I was thinking before with pulling the weeds that when something's bothering us, 99.9% of the time, and that's not researched. That's just, I made that up
like
on the time.
Great analytic.
Perfect. Back that up. You can Google that. Most of the time, we can't do anything about things. It's like we talked yesterday in a meeting we were in about what bothers us. What do we do when something bothers us about people? And the overwhelming response was that it's not really them, it's me. Like I need to work on it because we can't change other people. And so I thought, man, with pulling the weeds, that gives you can't do anything probably, most likely, whatever the issue is, you can't do anything about it. But literally pulling the weeds and naming them, you feel like you're doing something. But in actuality, you're not. You're allowing, whether it's prayer, meditation, time, silent, all that stuff, you're allowing that to give you space to that. You're giving space to that. So I just thought that was really powerful.
I think a couple of people were shocked when I said that I can easily spend 8 to 12 hours on a Saturday and a Sunday.
Oh, my face. We're not on camera right now, but my face now was the same as then. Like, oh my gosh.
I have to become physically exhausted before I can be silent.
Wow.
And that's how I do it.
Yeah.
And I realized that 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that that's what I was doing. There is a picture that I have. I had taken off my chucks and all of my garden implements are on my old crappy porch before we got the nicer new one. And I was sitting in a chair in the yard and I just took a picture of that because it represented an entire day and I literally could not move. My neighbor, the one that sits on his bench, came over and said, "Are you okay? It was a hot day.
Oh, yeah.
You've been at it for 10 hours. Do you need water? Do you need a saline solution?" Thank God Charlie is a firefighter.
Oh.
And I said, no, I'm okay. I'm just I'm finally at a place where I can be still. And he said, okay, I'll come and check and see if you're still out here in a half an hour. You should really go.
That was nice of him. What would you say your garden means to other people? Because the garden is huge to you. And, we kind of have some takeaway nuggets with that. But you did something for you. And what have you seen it do for others that you didn't think?
I think the biggest surprise reaction was when a business owner on Main Street in Marshall asked me if she could have flowers from my garden for her bridal bouquet. That absolutely set me over the moon. That's pretty special. I have seen, groups of 3 or 4 ladies that are just going on their evening constitutional, taking a walk through town, and they end up standing there for a second talking about, oh, my grandmother used to grow those, or I remember this, or that's an heirloom something. And I'm like, I don't think it is, but if you're having a moment, you have your moment.
Yeah.
I can tell that some of the joggers slow down. I can tell that kids are a little overwhelmed in exactly the way that I wanted my daughters to be. There are pictures of my former neighbor with her little boy, Teller, and him in my garden was like the sweetest. He would come over and, play with his plastic shovels while I was planting my tulips or whatever. Red ones, because squirrels don't seem to like them.
Good tip.
And he would just, bang along right beside me. And she'd say, oh, no, you get out of Miss Kate's way. And I'd be like, we're just digging dirt. Like, this is an okay activity for a little boy. There are pictures of him at Halloween in his bear suit, and then he fell over. So we had a roly-poly bear.
Oh.
And then I let everything go dead. I don't pull it up until after Halloween so that we can create a scary path for the trick-or-treaters. And I swear that's like one of the coolest things about Ben. I never saw this coming.
Yeah.
But he's got this horribly frightening mask that he loves to wear.
Oh.
It's sort of Freddy Krueger-esque, but nondescript. And there are 2 kids that come by every year and they still have a reaction to him. Even as they get older, they still have this physical, like they put their hands out, stop, no, I'm not going up there. And of course they always do, but they still struggle with it.
Yeah.
And he adds to it. We've got mock tombstones. We've got, like cross tombstones. We've got, and I think I painted the names on them with nail polish.
Oh man.
Like just, they're ridiculously old Wild West looking.
Yeah.
And then he got a fog machine and then he got a flickering light.
You're like, I did not know you were this person that goes all out for Halloween.
And
who would have thought your beautiful garden in the summer turns into this scary place?
It's awesome though.
Yeah.
Like these kids are out of their wits. And then they'll call from the sidewalk, you don't scare me. And Ben will get up and say, come on. And of course, then they keep going.
Oh, I would have been like, for the candy, I must go.
Usually they find their way back.
Yeah.
But they look twice.
That's funny.
It's cute.
So one of the last things you talked about, someone asked, hey, you always post pictures of your individual flowers. I want to see the whole garden. And I thought your response was interesting yesterday. You talked about how, well, you just live on a little, town, little street, and you're right by the road. And I thought that's even more impressive because, we always have excuses. I can't do such and such because I don't live in such and such, or whatever it is. And so I thought the fact that you don't have acres and acres and acres, of this wildflowers blooming, that you use what you have and you make it a wonderland. I thought that was so cool.
Well, I decided to share it.
You did.
I don't know if I withheld that because really, in the big scheme of things, you all see what's there, but I see what's not there yet. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole lot missing that you can't see, which is why I focus on small detailed things for a couple of reasons. One of them is that's how I can still fall into that sense of wonder. Mm-hmm. The flowers are not so big in my space as I was when I was 6. Mm-hmm. So that is part of me being able to fall back into that experience of there is so much more. It is so much greater happening than I see typically. The other part of it is, I have a humble abode and it's not grandiose. It's a little rambler. It's, to me, it's a palace. I bought it by myself.
I was going to say, I think it's perfect.
And it has a purple door and a bright orange shelf on the front porch with pillows that sort of tie the colors together.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I would like to see the garden wrap around, so it's almost like a little privacy fence. And like I said, I see what's not there yet. It's not finished. Why would you want to see that? But more than anything, I want people to stop when they see my pictures. I like knowing that there are people who stop for a second. Mm-hmm. Wow. I haven't ever seen that ladybug, or I haven't seen that kind of a leaf pattern. Mm-hmm. I was weeding the other day and saw that, when you're under a hosta looking up, that's a completely different set of patterns. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, how many people pay attention to that? How many people realize, a bug's life is not just a movie?
Yeah. Yeah. Good pull. I love that though. And I like your honesty and vulnerability with that because, we say it all the time, your Facebook is the highlight reel and yada, yada. And there's a difference between, I don't know, just acknowledging it and actually doing it. And I feel like even with the podcast, having people now come to my studio, M&M Exteriors home studio, like I'm letting people into my home, and there are people that it's kind of like, okay, you haven't known me forever. You don't know. I mean, I used to have a problem with babysitters, not problem, but we kind of had our regulars. And the honest reason, I mean, you might think it's like, oh, because these are the only trusted few or whatever. No, it was because I felt like the house was a mess and I'm kind of a mess. And I wasn't the mom that had the food prepared and, everything. It was just like, and I think because I was just so overwhelmed with having my kids, my one friend's daughter was like our first babysitter. And I literally think she was probably 12 at the time. And the kids were like babies. And I would just be like, bye, we'll be back. Like not babies, but like
Yeah,
I literally
get
was like, figure it out. There's food in there. And she was so awesome. She did it. And so just for years, it's been like, oh, I didn't have my act together enough to do all that kind of stuff. And so I had a hard time thinking of having other people come into my, space and be like, well, if it's not that clean, like if it's dirty, but people know us, they'll know like, oh, they're,
They'll get
fine.
over it.
Yeah, they'll get over it. I just had a hard time. And I think, the older you get and whatnot, you just don't care as much. And it's like, whatever, this is us. Like, this is who we are. And, the more honest we are, it helps. But at the same time, I was thinking, you talked about the flowers and I thought, you know what? It's good you pulled back the curtain and showed the big picture, because I think it's inspiring to people to see that like, oh, she doesn't have this, mansion in the South full of all these flowers everywhere. She has a normal house, just like me. I have a normal house. And so I think it's good to just, this is what you did. You bloom where you're planted. You made the best of what where you are. But also at the same, that doesn't mean you have to show it like that every day. Right. So you can choose to zoom in, and it's almost like sharing our story. Yes, let's share the real stuff, but that doesn't mean we always share our stuff. It's okay to have the highlights.
There are some things that are just private.
Yeah.
I mean, you can catch a glimpse of the forge, but I didn't make sure that was front and center. You can catch a glimpse of our
gotta go
bright
back and watch
red
it.
shed, but we didn't go visit it.
Yeah.
There's a raised bed garden in the backyard that I think Ben and I are quietly, non-verbally arguing over who's got the turf.
Oh, what was he want to do with it?
I think he would love it if we would do vegetables.
Oh.
And
yeah.
I really should sort of yield to that because I've pretty much taken over everything else.
Yeah.
But there are native species plants that are cropping up there, and I just can't let it go.
Oh,
so
funny.
this plant called spiderwort that you read about in books or you see in like herbal remedy type things. I had never seen one, had no idea what it was, and I've got like a bumper crop of these bad boys.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a really interesting, strange, sort of alien to me.
Mm-hmm.
Fauna. They're very angular, and then they have these just sweet trefoil type flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they kind of die on the vine, if you will, and go to seed, they look like a bunch of little bells.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gotten a little infatuated with them. And I can honestly tell you that as I researched it, they should be very easy to move and reposition, but I can't bring myself to do it just yet. There are creatures living in that all of a sudden native species space. The only non-native species in that thing is about 200 daffodils. So when they die back, these things start popping up all over the place. That's where the cilantro came from. It was one of those, let's plant that here because Ben wants a vegetable garden. And then the next thing I knew, we had half an acre of cilantro in this, 10 square foot.
I wouldn't even think though, you talked about like the natives, like the species living there. I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, I would never even think of that, which is why I like people that share their perspective. Cause I'm like, I would have just pulled that out. Well, I wouldn't have done anything, let's be honest.
I think I might have.
I would not have gone out there. Who am I kidding? Like, that would not have happened. So, maybe one day.
I mean, you can learn a lot at the Fauquier Education Farm. Jim Hankins is an encyclopedia of plants.
Just telling me
and
about him.
That's such an impressive.
You know what I like what you said? So, kind of like a takeaway is that you were, and today too, like, so with hearing about your passion and how important it's been to you, and helped you mentally through things. I mean, I feel like either, you inspire people to want to take up gardening or to find their own thing. And so I like the idea of focusing on one flower. Because I feel overwhelmed. I can definitely do spread the wildflower seeds. I am all over that. As far as the next thing, I was actually thinking about my sister-in-law. She got really into orchids and just tending orchids. You said, think of a flower you love. So for me, it was the bleeding hearts, just ever since I was little. I don't know if it was because like I'm a kid and I like
great
quartz.
shade here.
Oh, good. So then I thought like, what if all I focused on was the bleeding hearts? So I think for takeaways,
you could do that with hostas and astilbes, and people would think you were the most amazing gardener ever.
Okay, I'm gonna have to write that down.
I'll note it.
Yeah, note that,
Astilbes like shade also, but they have sort of jagged edge leaves.
Yeah.
The hostas are big and rotund and sort of full.
Yeah.
But the bleeding hearts will fade back a little bit after their bloom. But they're so delightful, right? With their, they're perfect.
Yeah,
they're perfect.
They seem like a good thing. So I might have to look into that more. All right, so I'm going to ask you we have wrap-up question.
Okay.
Not related to what we talked about.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm all about conversation. I'm all about chatting. So it could be a 3-part question, or you can pull one from the 3.
Oh, boy.
So it's, what conversation do you need to either start having, stop having, or continue having? So what is something that is on your mind that you either want to stop thinking about, start talking more about, or you just want to continue it because you're there?
Are these conversations with myself or
Anything.
with others or with the universe?
Anything. Serious or facetious. Anything.
So I think the number one conversation that I should stop having is any conversation about another person who is not in the room.
That's a good one.
Unless it is to spread joy and laughter and it's something it's tough to do, but the Aborigine in the outback of Australia have a law, if you will, that you cannot tell a story that you didn't actually witness. Wow. So if a visitor from another tribe comes and says, I want to share this story with you, they can tell the story if they've witnessed it.
But if they haven't.
But more importantly, you can't say, oh, this happened in that tribe. Your story has to be, so-and-so from this tribe came to visit us, and it was a really nice night, and we were around the fire, or we were doing what we were doing, and he shared this experience. Oh, yeah. But you have to give credit, and you have to be mindful that it's not your story.
No creative licensing
at all
in the outback.
And I thought that was a really, really beautiful lesson, and an articulate lesson.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the one conversation I should stop having.
I like that.
Whether it's, I shouldn't let other people invade my mind space. And the conversations that I should start having are really about what can I do next to help the people in my life feel more empowered. I have a daughter going away to college. She is going 1,000,000 miles away. I have a daughter right behind her that's about to graduate from high school in 2020. And
they're only a year apart?
They're 18 months apart, but a grade apart.
Mine are 17 months apart, but they're 2 apart.
It's a cool dynamic.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It was hard. I don't know about you, but those first few years
Well, that's why I started gardening. Yes. Let's get outside. Yes. Do anything.
And that's why I started play groups when mine were little. See, I was like,
you've always been flushing it out.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Yes.
But I think it's, I think really there's such this negativity going on right now, whether it's politic or whether it's social, it doesn't matter. Like, I have no control over the grisly things human beings do to each other. I have control over what I do to other people.
Yeah.
And as my girls leave the house and the safety of that nest, I want them to go out with their eyes wide open, but I also want them to go out knowing that they have everything they need, and they shouldn't wait until they can do it perfectly to start doing it.
Yeah.
And the
convicting.
the courage to start the business, the only thing that held me back is, well, I'm not ready. Well, I don't really know how to do this. I'm not perfect at that. I'm not great at that. I have these great ideas, but I don't really have the chops or the pedigree.
Yeah.
And then I started to realize in my own garden, I didn't know what the heck I was doing when I started.
Yes.
Now I'm talking to you about, do you want to talk about flowers or natives or...
And I'm like, beep boop bop bop bo.
Right. Go back to talking Spanish, Kate. So I think anything that empowers us to move forward is a better conversation, period.
I love that. That's so convicting because I'm like a secret perfectionist. I'm a procrastinating perfectionist.
So I learned that about you.
Yeah.
You gave me an assignment and said, how do I start moving forward with this job that I've been given?
Mm-hmm.
And all I did was literally give you a map, right?
Yeah.
That's all it was. And the next thing I knew, you're doing these crazy cool things like social media contests and getting engagement on that page and
thanks to you, I appreciate
being
that.
very spontaneous, but they're all your ideas and they're just, you just needed 21 days of habit forming.
Yeah.
Positive habit forming. And then now look at you go. How cool is that?
Thanks.
How cool did that feel when you started to just sort of hit your stride and wing it, and it was awesome?
Oh, well, that makes me feel good hearing it. And as you know, words of affirmation are definitely my love language. But you helping though, and once again, something that was not a big deal to you, but I need that hand holding initially. Even with this podcast, like I'm very grateful for a support system, people encouraging me and loving me, because that is kind of the thing I don't talk about. But I do talk about. So talking about it publicly here is, like I have a fear of, screwing up or not doing good. And even with being recorded, I have a hard time with recording my thoughts or opinions and things like that. But Rebecca Bertram, my first guest, said something very life-changing for me, which was like, I reserve the right to be wrong. So it is okay for me to be wrong. And I have to keep telling myself that over and over again, because I never want to say anything wrong. I never want to, I used to have a joke when I journaled as a kid. I didn't really journal, but I would find diaries and journals of one page. And so I found one from 5th grade, and it was written in pen, and it said, whatever, I'm in so-and-so's class, and these are my friends. And then it said, I have a crush on, and then there was this pen writing stopped. And then it was pencil, because I wrote the boy's name in pencil. And then when I decided I didn't have a crush on him, I erased it. And then I wrote the new name there.
Wow, too bad tattoos aren't like that.
Oh my gosh. Well, why do you think I never got a tattoo? And even now playing around with the idea, I mean, I'm shocked that I'm even considering it. But I just couldn't believe that, like in 5th grade, because I've always joked I have commitment issues, except with my husband. But like, yes, the thought of a tattoo, like, oh my gosh, I can't. It's not like the tattoo, it's the permanentness of it, and I don't know if it has to do with growing up moving around, but even like I said, even journaling, I know that there's growth in it and we're supposed to do it, but I think if I'm being honest, there was a part of me that thought, I don't want to look back and see that I thought, that or whatever. Like if I say things and it's not recorded, it's like dust in the wind. So I'll tell my poop story, I'll tell this, whatever. I don't care, because like it's just dust in the wind. If it makes you laugh at it, you take what you want from this. But now this is like a whole new level of recording it. And, going back and realizing, or you're like, if opinions change, like that was very stressful. But as Rebecca said, I reserve the right to be wrong. So I need to
I reserve the right to grow.
Exactly.
I would like to share this story, and that it's being recorded is really important. When I was in my late 20s, I started taking ballroom dance lessons because a very dear friend of mine had been diagnosed with MS. Mm. And he came in to the coffee shop one day and said, hey, everybody, here's a flyer to take, tango lessons. And we all kind of ha-ha'd. He said, well, I would like to learn how to tango before I can no longer walk. Well, boy, did we feel like absolute jerks. Mm-hmm. And I have definitely censored how we actually felt, but yeah, let that suffice. So we started taking these dance lessons together. He was terrible. And it was absolutely brilliant. But I will tell you that 20 years on, he's still walking. He is still living independently, and he is still functioning and he works on a farm all through the summer in upstate New York, and gardens and farms and harvests and hay bales and the whole bit.
That's amazing.
It's interesting that he decided he needed to learn how to dance before he could no longer walk, because I'm sure it's kept him walking.
I bet.
That was a sidebar. The point is that I was learning how to foxtrot, and I had been paired up with this gentleman named Arthur, who I suspect was in his 70s. And Arthur clearly had done this a time or two.
Oh, well, hey.
Just by virtue of his age, he knew this dance far better than I did. And I said, I'm just going to apologize right now. I'm a beginner. You clearly know what you're doing. So I'm just sorry right up front. I'm a beginner. Yeah. And he said, my dear, I have been a beginner for 70 odd years. Never forget that. And I had the greatest dance of my life. And I have never forgotten Arthur's words. We're always beginners.
Yep.
It's how we look at life. And I hope, 20 years on, I really sincerely hope that Arthur is still dancing.
Yeah.
But he was just some guy I met in a dance class. Yeah. So it wasn't like we kept in touch, but that conversation has endured through time.
Wow. We're always beginners.
My dear, I have been a beginner for 70 whatever years.
I love that. That's so good. Well, thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
This is amazing.
I got to hang out with Hankers, the whoopee dog.
Yeah.
And now he's smiling in his sleep. So clearly I've talked him to death.
No. Oh my gosh. He's like the little studio mascot. He's so sweet. So how can people find you to learn more about you, what you do?
You can find me on flourishwithkate.com. You can find me at a Team Win networking event. You can find me at an SBN networking event from time to time. I work out of my car, so you can email me, but it's easier to just go to the website than get through all of the names and so forth. Flourishwithkate.com is the best way to find all my resources.
Perfect. And we're in Northern Virginia.
We are.
I'm sure if someone wanted to pick your brain
I am
outside,
worldwide.
Yes.
Me and Pitbull.
Yes. Worldwide. I wish if we had the money for the thing, we could start playing him right
and
now.
And I really want you guys to know that if the dream that Ben and I have of relocating ourselves to Puerto Rico ever comes to fruition, we will have an M&M Exteriors sound booth there, except ocean crashing instead of white noise.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh. That would be my dream.
Well, yeah, I'll have to work on my garden. You can work on your podcast.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Oh, remote. Oh, I can't wait. Yay. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
I did save a woman's life once.
See? I think I remember hearing that.
Yes. The amount of pride I feel for such things, I feel like this is why I don't think I'm capable of doing truly great things like curing cancer or something, because the amount of passion and pride I feel. So a woman came out of the bathroom. We were at a concert, or actually like a comedy thing, but it was at like a Staples Center type place. And she had her dress tucked into the back of her thing. One. And I walked over and I was like, excuse me, you have your dress, tucked in. And oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I should have just left it at that. I should have just gone back to my husband and my friends and just like, whatever. And I came back and I'm like, you guys, I saved a woman's life. She was about to walk out of the bathroom with her skirt.
And then you performed CPR, right?
I did, on her pride and her dignity.
That's true.
So
that's true.
But I can't just let it be. Like my husband, on the other hand, he like pulled someone out of a ditch once. He went to work. Someone was in the ditch. He pulled him out. Went to work.
Goes on to work.
Things.
Doesn't say a word.
It's like 2 days go by and he's like, oh yeah, I pulled someone out of the ditch. And I was like, what? I help a woman get her dress out of her legs, her tights or whatever. And I'm like, I saved the world, and you literally saved someone. And you're like, well, it's not a big deal. I'm like, I'm not capable of performing such acts of heroism.
My daughter said something the other day. I don't know what I did. And she saw me do it, and she said, I did something nice for someone the other day. I'm like, you go, Blondie.
Good job. I fixed the toilet, the paper towel dispenser at the local Mexican restaurant, and I spent about 5 hectares. Oh, I love hectares. Yeah, let's get
it. Is that good?
Oh, we love it. Yeah, it's like our favorite. And because it's an awesome location, great. They love the community. They love welcoming you.
As hungry as I am, I'm on my way.
Why did you get that? I would give you food.
Good.
But yes,
I'll crunch.
The paper. That's okay. That's the fun of it. The paper towel dispenser.
So what are we doing? DMSR now?
Yeah.
Is that what?
Oh yes, I just learned about that. Take your sip of water and go.
Oh.
Wait, here it is.
I don't think I
Oh,
can
you
do
don't
it.
have
Oh,
your
no, I
headphones
don't.
on.
I'm not listening.
So, but anyway, the paper towel dispenser, it was kind of snagged in there. And so it was kept getting backed up. So I meticulously just went and pulled over here and pulled over there and pull.
You saved the world.
And it got flowing. And I walked out like, I should probably eat here for free for the rest of my life.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. My work here is done.
Like, I'm not capable. It comes across sarcastically. So it's like, haha, look at me. I'm so silly. But internally, I'm like, no,
I really should have free tacos.
Excuse
like
me, can I speak to the
forever.
manager, please?
Yes, I literally
No, nothing
just
is
did-
wrong. I just saved this restaurant.
I just totally saved this, and maybe that's what does qualify me as a millennial or something. You know, people give hard time. Like, I
Entitlement.
do want my recognition. Like, I did
We all
this.
want to be thanked for something.
Yeah.
Like, if you hold the door open for somebody, don't you
Say
think you deserve
thank
a thank you?
Yes, just like when you let them in, you want the little wave that says,
Yes!
thanks for letting me in.
When you flash your lights at a trucker, I want you to flash me your tail lights.
Yes. I'm glad you said taillights because I
Yeah.
was like, where are you going with this, Kate? If I flash mine, I want you to flash yours.
Well,
There's not enough reciprocation in the world.
equal opportunity
Yeah. I'm
is not
sure.
dead. When my girls are working at shameful plug, is that all?
No, go
Okay.
ahead. Why not?
Carousel
Please.
Ice Cream in
Oh,
Warrenton.
I didn't know they worked there.
It astounds them how many people will not take the free pup cup for their dogs.
It's free?
Is it $1?
Oh, I don't know.
It might be $1.
Wow, but that's
It's
still
not.
good,
It's
though.
not like crazy. it's
Yeah.
really it's cute as heck, and
Yeah.
you should do it.
Yeah.
But it really torches my one daughter in particular when you come in and you get a cone and a sundae and a Waterloo, and you've got $30 worth of ice
Yeah.
cream, and you won't get your dog a pup cup.
But what
Like,
if they're lactose intolerant?
that they can still take the dog bone.
Oh, yeah.
It's
okay.
still ice cream, for God's sake.
And then you get
Actually,
the ice cream.
I think I'm going to actually do that from now on, like, because the kids get theirs and I usually don't get anything. But I was like, Hank ate ice cream the other day and it took him forever because he's not a lab. So he just lick.
Yeah,
lick,
sweet,
lick.
soft.
So I'm like, I'm taking the bones off. I'm taking some bites and then I'll give him the rest.
Yeah, but
But they get frosted when others don't.
and at the end of the night,
Pun
when
intended.
they share the tip jar, they can remember. This is horrible to say, but they remember that person that made the difference. There's always that one person in the shift who shows up. Maybe he gets 1 or 2 ice cream cones, but there's a $10 tip or there's something. But the difference it makes for those kids it's huge. I mean, it changes their world.
Yeah.
They can go out to Frost Diner afterwards and spend time together. They've got gas money.
I've always said that everyone should work in a customer service field. And so for me, but working for tips, you just kind of remind me that because I bagged groceries growing up. Hopefully the tax people do not come after me. It used to be, I don't know how it is now on the Army bases, but you just worked for tips. And so there's days, where it was busy and then there's
serving
days
your
it wasn't.
country. This is the woman who saved the world.
Yeah.
Right.
I bagged
Yeah.
groceries. And we took
Oh,
it seriously.
gosh.
We had the guy who trained me. I mean, he legit trained. I took that seriously. I dreamed about it at night, like Tetris. It was the items coming down, and I would bag your bathroom products together and your frozen items together because I wanted you to go home and take this to the freezer, take this to your bathroom linen cloth. Took it very seriously.
But we
Play the
should.
Tetris theme behind all of that.
We can't afford that.
I was thinking more Frogger.
But working for tips though, I think that made you appreciate
It does.
getting it. And then
It
you do
certainly
think
does.
that man, they only got a bag. They got, a bag or two and they gave me $5 where I did 2 carts worth and didn't get anything. And it's
Got
not
a
like
nickel.
and it's not that you want to harp on them, but it was just, it made you like, wow, that was really generous.
So
and
that brings it all back full circle. That's that space of coming at the world from a position of abundance or a viewpoint of there is so much.
Yeah.
I have to give a little of it back out.
yeah.
And I think some people really exude that.
I know I talk about it and admire it and I want to be that. And I feel like in some areas I might be, but then I know in other areas I'm more fearful or scarcity, you know? So that's kind of something I keep replaying over and over in my head, wanting to.
So that's the lesson, right?
Yeah.
You know, when it keeps coming back to you, that's the lesson.
And that's a wrap for now.
Thanks for listening to Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle. Music provided by twinmusicom.org. Song titled Night at the Dance Hall. Sound editing by me, Jeremy Spittle. A special thanks to our studio sponsor, M&M Exteriors. Visit their website at mmexteriors.com for all of your roofing, siding, and gutter needs in the Northern Virginia area. Visit our website at flushingitout.com and be sure to subscribe. This has been a Spitfire production.
That was the greatest thing I've ever heard.